The all-time series is tied, and Ohio State and Texas are set to meet for the 5th time ever. And if my math is correct, Birm, that means the winner will take a 3-2 series edge in this rivalry.
Well, you really stretched for that one.
I did. But we are close to this matchup, the 5th all-time in the Ohio State-Texas series, Saturday at noon in the Horseshoe. Can't wait. And I was able to find a way to get 3 things that might be important to win number 3.
Yeah, it would be the 3rd in a row for Ohio State if my memory serves.
Afraid you're incorrect on that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot the Fiesta Bowl in 2009. My apologies. My bad.
Yeah, there is a weird quirk in this series where the road teams in that series in 2005 and 2006, they both teams won away from home, and then Texas won that Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State won the most important game of
so
consequence.
It's been back and forth. So
it has been.
Little, what's what we call a little bit of a harbinger of bad news.
Ooh, well, that wasn't how I intended it, but if Ohio State is going to buck that trend, again, pretty small sample size, there's going to be 3 matchups that we're going to watch on a 3 Things Thursday to get a 3rd win for the Buckeyes over Texas. And thing number 1, Birm, would be the matchup for Ohio State that you are most confident that they can win.
I think it's the receivers versus Texas's secondary, but that is interesting in that it's not really just about those guys. It's obviously going to be about pass protection and Julian Sayin, but as far as just being open, as long as there's enough time for the Ohio State receivers to get downfield before Julian Sayin's under pressure, I think Ohio State can win that matchup. Now, that is unfortunate because I don't think this is a game where the Buckeyes want to rely on Julian Sayin's arm or having to throw it 35 to 40 times to win, but that is the best position on the field for Ohio State. It is the deepest position group on the roster. It is the deepest position group of any individual room in the country. And so I don't care what Texas did to Jeremiah Smith in the Cotton Bowl. I think as I've rewatched that game, I think there were times Ohio State probably could have gotten the ball to him a few more times than they did. And I think that was just a matter of, hey, we don't really have to do this. If they're going to waste all these resources over there, let's let them run them off. I don't think that's the case on Saturday. I think Texas, understanding that they have an opportunity to affect a first-time starter at quarterback, is probably going to get a little bit more aggressive and try to beat Jeremiah or not let Jeremiah beat them in a different way than they did last time. So to me, that's the matchup that I think Ohio State can exploit as long as Julian Sayin has time to throw.
I was going to make that same point, Birm, that it wasn't as if there was this blanket coverage on Jeremiah Smith for the entirety of the game. And it's also why you say that it's about protection.
Yeah.
Like, Texas has really good elite pass rushers and aggressive defense. They're going to blitz from different angles. And there were times that they got to Will Howard in the Cotton Bowl. That also has to play in the back of a quarterback's mind about where they're going to go with the football and which opportunities to take when they might be there. So it's not as simple as Jeremiah is going to win every single route that he has. Against most defensive backs, he is. Texas has a great secondary as well. They have plenty of great athletes over there. But when you're taking the totality of that group, if Julian Sayin has time, I think you're 100% right. Jeremiah Smith is going to get open. Brandon Ennis is going to be open. Max Clare is going to be open. Carnell Tate is going to be open. There's not a secondary in the country anywhere that's equipped to handle that.
Because even if you play technically good coverage, these receivers are good enough to still beat you or to make a catch that maybe an average receiver wouldn't make. And as we watched, as we've talked about in the last few weeks with C.J. Stroud and the receivers Ohio State had when C.J. was here, all the quarterback has to do is put it near them. So it's not as though you can get away with just being perfect. Like, you might be perfect, but Jeremiah Smith is still better than you. So it's not just like, well, we clamped him down one-on-one and then they didn't throw to him. Like, I think you got to take your shots. And if you're going to win this game, your best players have to make plays, as Ryan Day was informed on Tuesday. And the best players on Ohio State's roster are the receivers.
Yeah, I think anytime the football is in the air, this is my opinion of these rosters, another matchup that is exploitable for Ohio State. When Texas is throwing the football, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Arch Manning, everybody has decided before he's played a meaningful start that he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I wouldn't want to go make a start in the Horseshoe against a new defense, and especially one that has Caleb Downs, Davison Igbinosun now in his 4th year as a starting cornerback at the college football level, Jermaine Matthews, who has been eagerly awaiting his opportunity to go out there and be on the field every single snap for Ohio State. Whether that's Malik Hartford or Jalen McClain or some combination of both, those are really, really skilled safeties out there. And, there are people that remain skeptical of Lorenzo Styles Jr. I get it.
Sure.
I'm not really in that camp. If I'm wrong on Saturday, certainly there are going to be plenty of opportunities to find out because he's going to be in that nickel spot when the game starts against Texas. I like him in that role. I think, again, the proof is going to be in the pudding on Saturday if Texas tries to go at him repeatedly, like teams did when he was in that dime role, and that was the just process of elimination.
Yeah.
Who are you going
As I said, sometimes at the Olympics, there is a slowest sprinter.
Yeah, it's process of elimination, and he was going to get attacked. But I do think it's encouraging to look back at some of Lorenzo's work a year ago and see, he gave up completions. They didn't go over his head. They didn't go for touchdowns. He was generally pretty solid out there. He's going to have to be more than solid, but I think Texas has done some work. We know that they have talent as well. They dipped into the transfer portal. I don't know that their weapons are enough to have me really, if I'm Matt Guerrieri, Tim Walton, Matt Patricia, like terrified of getting beat through the air. I guess we'll find out. But I personally, as I come in, and that's a thing number one for me, a matchup that Ohio State I think should be favored in. Both times when the football's in the air, I think is to their favor.
Yeah, Texas has Ryan Wingo, former 5-star wide receiver, who's obviously an electric athlete. I'm not sure he's like a highly polished wide receiver. Most of their best receivers, as far as recruiting pedigree and expectations, are all true freshmen who will be making their first plays ever in college football. So on one hand, it's like Ohio State doesn't really know what those guys are, but on the other hand, they don't know what they are either, and you got to come into Ohio Stadium and do it against Ohio State, 105,000 people.
Okay, so thing number two, a matchup that you think might favor Texas.
That seemed like a natural transition. I was wondering if you were going to go to that part second. So I've been thinking about it. And until they prove me wrong, I think it has to be the Ohio State defensive line against Texas's running game. Okay. I really do believe in that. And I think it's important to clarify that I don't think the running game for Texas is going to be predicated entirely on the running backs. I think Arch Manning is going to end up being their leading rusher on Saturday. So call that an early bold P. It's a non-sanctioned bold P because it's about Texas's offense, but I think he's going to be their leading rusher.
You can make as many bold Ps about Texas as you want.
Really?
Yeah, it's allowed.
Sweet. Friday show is going to be awesome.
Maybe don't though.
Okay, but that's the matchup, and it's not about talent. It's about endurance. It's about wind. Does Edric Houston have it after missing some time this training camp? Is Caden McDonald ready for that? He's lost weight. He certainly looks good, but is he ready to play 45 snaps, 50 snaps? So we have no idea. And then there's the question marks. It's never been about effort with Caden Curry. It's always been about size. It's never been about size and athleticism with Kenyatta Jackson. It's been about motivation. So now, how do you bring all that together? Texas is going to use the running backs in the passing game a lot, but how they control the line of scrimmage with the man-on-man blocking, just you versus me. They're replacing a lot of dudes on their offensive line, and I know that is something that works in Ohio State's favor. But Ohio State's replacing their entire defensive line. So I think it's kind of a wash. But until the Buckeyes are able to go out there and prove that they can shut it down and be stout at the line of scrimmage, I'm going to have a doubt about that because that's been the storyline of the entire offseason. And we can't say it's fixed until we see it in person.
Yeah, you have to win there.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. The same way that when Ohio State is on offense, they're going to need to be able to run the ball to support Julian Sayin and get him through this first start and try to get out of that with a win and move on to the rest of the season where maybe he becomes more polished as a passer week after week after week. I don't think that that's going to happen necessarily in week one against Texas. And again, the great news is that we're 2 days away from finding out if that's true, but the best friend for him would be if those 5 or 6 guys up front are able to open up some holes and CJ Donaldson and or James Peoples and or Bo Jackson are able to find some rushing room against Texas. Again, this is a talent-equated game.
Let me ask you this question, because I think it's an important distinction to make when you're talking about a running game not getting untracked or on track or unhitched, hypothetically. If it doesn't work for Ohio State in the run game, do you think it's more of an offensive line issue or a running back issue?
Yes, yeah. It could be either or both, depending. There is, for everything, I'm not trying to have this both ways. For everything that I feel about Ohio State's offensive line and what it can be and what it can become, this configuration we've never seen.
Yeah.
Austin Saraveld at left tackle, Philip Daniels or Ethan Onyanwa at right tackle. We've certainly seen Tegra Shabola playing in games of consequence. We've seen that with Carson Hinsman and Luke Montgomery, but out there at tackle is going to be a relatively new experience. And it's not, I'm not coming at this from a perspective that Ohio State can't win, that they can't take advantage of this matchup, that they're not going to be able to hold up against Texas' defensive front or block their linebackers? Because I think that they can. If you're going into this game, and I'm trying to be, fair and balanced and objective about it, looking at it, Texas is more experienced than that defensive front seven. They're probably going to have opportunities to succeed.
Yeah.
I think the potential is certainly there, but if you're going into this game and thinking it's going to be really easy, it won't be. And C.J. Donaldson is doing this for the first time at Ohio State. James Peoples is doing this for the first time as a full-time back. Like, that's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. So it's one that I think on paper you'd have to say Texas has the advantage going into it, and it's also a spot where Ohio State has to find some way to neutralize and be even in it, because to go back to what you're talking about, I think either team, the first one to 100 rushing yards is going to win this game. I look back and I wanted a refresher, and I'm glad that I got it earlier on Wednesday. 58 rushing yards on 29 carries for Texas in the Cotton Bowl. Why did they struggle to find any sort of consistent success? Ohio State didn't allow it. 2 yards per carry is not a way to win in a talent-equated matchup. So if either one is able to find some rushing opportunities, and Ryan Day said it again on Tuesday, he reiterates that every single time, you have to win these games up front. Yeah. And Texas is really good there, period.
I'm trying to find the micro devil's advocate or devil's, whatever. What's that expression? When you're thinking about the other thing and just to say it.
Well, you don't say devil's advocate. You're many micro devil's advocate. You're just going to play devil's advocate.
No, but this is a mini micro devil's advocate. Oh, okay. Because as I'm trying to think
is
about...
Is a mini micro? Is that actually
a
gigantic?
Micro mini.
Okay.
It's a micro mini devil's advocacy for the interior of the Ohio State offensive line versus the interior of the Texas defensive line. Texas, I think, signed 11 defensive tackles in the transfer portal.
Every tackle that was in the portal was signed by Texas.
So obviously they were not leaving last season feeling super confident about the group that they had up the middle. And that, if you look at the Ohio State offensive line, is the one spot where you're like, okay, I don't feel like I have questions there. And so maybe the way for Ohio State to win that battle is between the tackles and between the guards and really run it up the middle, because Texas has in Anthony Hill one of the best linebackers in the country, but he's just one guy. So if you can get the interior offensive lineman up to the second level, you can get some help there in some way, whether it's a tight end or whether it's a receiver coming down to block. I don't know, but I think that there's an opportunity to win there for Ohio State. It's the edges that have me worried, which feels wrong in a way, because I really believe Austin Birm is going to be an MVP for this team this year. But man, Colin Simmons and the rest of the guys on the Texas, Trey Moore, etc., that is a tough spot to start the season. And remember, Austin Birm, when he got to Ohio State, had never pass protected in his life. They didn't run that at Lakota East. So he came into Ohio State with no questions at all about his ability as a run blocker and a guy who can be just a grinder out there. But now he's a tackle, and it's got to be a more high poetry type of position. And I'm not sure if he's that guy. So, but Ohio State seems to think he is. So I think we have no choice but to believe them. But that is where I would have a question about how do you win that battle? That's how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, they've certainly spent plenty of time analyzing that.
Yeah.
Ryan Day was aside from what we saw in spring camp, the decision early in training camp to move Austin Birm over to left tackle permanently, there was all this other conversation where Ryan Day's we met with Mickey Marotti, we looked at the body type, we looked at the wingspan, we looked at this, that, footwork, mobility, agility. Mogility would be a great combination of that.
I love that word, mogility.
Just a new way to break things down here on the beat. They were convinced that was the right move, and because you could look at the size and athletic profile for either Phillip Daniels and Ethan Onyanwa and come to that conclusion, but they had all three of those guys available, plus Ian Moore, and so no, this is the way that they want to go. So these guys know a lot of football. They've been coaching it for a long time, and I don't think that they would be. I don't think they were forced into it.
No,
they had options.
It's been 3 years of growth and development, but this is the first time that Austin Birm is going to be able to put that on the field against an opponent. And Colin Simmons, hey, if you want to prove that you're an all Big Ten tackle, now's your time.
Yeah, I mean, Game 1. And everyone is going to be paying attention to it. All right. Thing number 3. This is not Julian Sayin specific. It's not Arch Manning specific. Who do you think, which offense is more comfortable at quarterback going into Saturday?
Clearly, Texas. I mean, Arch Manning has not started as you said, like a big game or a real game. He did start games last year. He threw almost 100 passes. He was a player that had specific packages for him in Texas's offense before. Some of that is because Quinn Ewers was unable to stay healthy, and when he was healthy, was ineffective. So they would bring in Arch to move the offense. And I just think that knowing what he provides you in the run game, knowing his athleticism and seeing it against SEC caliber athletes over the last 2 years.
Well, Mississippi State.
Oh, I mean, as we talked about before on the beat, Toledo had a much better game against Mississippi State than Texas did. But
just wanted to tee you up for it.
TOL. But the point is, Ohio State they have a hope. It's what Ryan Day said on Tuesday, and I think it's one of the things
hope is not a strategy.
No, but what he said on Tuesday, which we didn't talk about on Snap Judgments and hasn't really been discussed since. Like the mindset of a coach right now is just all assumptions. They have an assumption of what they're going to get out of Julian Sayin. Texas does not have an assumption. They have proof positive of what they've been able to do with Arch in the offense, running the offense. Now, certainly there's differences when you're playing Ohio State in Ohio Stadium, new defense, all the other stuff. But that's not even. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. I think Texas has more reason to come into this game confident than Ohio State, and that doesn't mean Ohio State isn't confident. I'm saying if I was just handicapping it from the outside, and we've talked all summer about, well, why does the national media think Ohio State is so is in such a rebuild and Texas is reloaded? And I think it all comes down to the quarterback, and it's that Texas at least has 95 passing attempts under Arch's belt last year that can make them go, well, this is what we have, and we've seen it. You guys have no idea.
Well, they're at 100 on the Manning ratio.
That's true. Do you believe that Julian Sayin and Ohio State should be more confident and comfortable?
Yeah, I wanted to frame that conversation in a different way, because I do think that Texas is more confident. But if you ask me who's facing a more daunting prospect on Saturday, I think it's Arch Manning. So, and that goes into all the things that we talked about. When the football's in the air, Ohio State's secondary. What I think, if there is uncertainty about Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, Edric Houston as a run stuffer, both, like, I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever about Ohio State's ability to generate pressure. Yeah. And so I think we've talked about Ohio State needing to run the ball to help Julian Sayin, and I think that might be doubly true for Texas on the road. As loud as it's going to be in that building to my right on Saturday at noon, it's going to be awesome. I think the atmosphere is going to be electrifying. I wouldn't want to be in that spot. Now, I think that Texas and Steve Sarkisian don't have any second doubts about who they have and why they've invested this amount of time, and Arch Manning's buying and all the other things. But the other part that has gone, I think, even undiscussed or underdiscussed from the last 8 months in the Arch conversation is this notion that's like, well, he's now ready to explode. And somebody told me on Wednesday, it's like, well, it would have been different if Arch had played in the Cotton Bowl. He played in the Cotton Bowl.
I mean, they could have played him a lot more had they chosen.
But like, it's a misunderstanding of how depth charts work. He was in year 2.
Yeah, they could have put it in at any time.
And didn't beat out Quinn Ewers. Oh, it was an NIL factor. No, right. It wasn't. Not once you get into the middle of the season.
Not once you're in the playoffs. Like, you're not worried about how much money Quinn Ewers made on NIL.
It doesn't matter.
In the middle of the playoff, because you're going to lose that game.
Yeah, the chips were on the table. They were, 2 games away from
out.
Two games away from winning a national championship. Right. You don't be like, oh, well, we invested all this money.
Sorry, we paid Quinn this. We got to let him do it.
Let's just let Arch sit over there. The expression that Arch had after the one play he got didn't look like he was someone who thought that he belonged in that game. I'm on the outside speculating. I'm not going to speak for him.
I'm not sure. As I joked about I'm not sure he remembers that he was in that game, to be honest. But it is an interesting conversation altogether. But for anybody who says that game would have been different if Arch played, I mean, maybe.
It's not how it works.
It could have been, but
it probably would have been a blowout.
They could have played him if they wanted. They were allowed to.
Yeah, I mean, the throws that Quinn Ewers did make, the touchdown passes and out of the backfield were pretty elite throws. I mean, there wasn't anything. I've been pretty critical of Quinn Ewers over the last few years, the ups and downs and the process at Ohio State and all that. But, he was under duress. He made some big-time throws, and that was a highly competitive knockdown, drag-out fight. I don't think Arch Manning would have made a difference in that game personally. And the only reason I can actually stand here and say this with, 10 toes down is because Steve Sarkisian did not put him in the game to change it. Yeah. So Certainly he's had time to grow up and mature since then. I know that Texas believes in him fully. There's not been any conversation about any other outcome, nor would I expect there to be.
I mean, there is a difference. Like, I don't even know who Texas's backup quarterback is right now. Last year, all we heard about was Arch Manning. So clearly, it's different. Like, that emanates out of the program because the conversation internally was, maybe we should play Arch. Maybe we should play Arch, but they didn't. And why they didn't in the beginning part of the year is a different conversation than why they didn't at the end. Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
Can I ask you a question, America? How many college head coaches have won a national championship? Active college head coaches. There's 3, right? There's Dabo Swinney, there's Kirby Smart, there's Ryan Day. Do you feel, and maybe I'm just, it's Homer Birm, maybe I'm just like trying to get Ryan Day's back or whatever, but it feels like...
Doesn't sound like you are if you're bringing it up that way.
Well, because I'm annoyed at this perception nationally still that, like, it's almost like people think last year was a fluke for Ryan Day. Do you get that impression? Or like we've seen a different side of him over the last 8 months, and everyone who's been around here has seen it. But I think nationally there's still this expectation that Ohio State's going to lose on Saturday. They're going to lose to Michigan. Ryan Day still got lucky.
You got to stop watching the SEC
best
Network,
roster
man.
money could buy. Nobody's talking about Texas's roster being $40 million this year. Like, why can Ryan Day not get just a little modicum of respect from the national media?
Because then they would have to go back and admit that some of the things they said at the end of November last year were wrong.
It pisses me off. I don't like it. I think it's garbage. That's all. Do you not feel that way? Do you don't feel like he's still being disrespected nationally in a way that, like, I still think people are like lining him and James Franklin up as the same type of coach.
Cool. Well, now you're trying to get me going.
Well, now I'm trying to get you going because
I agree with you. And
like, where is the benefit of the doubt?
The simple fact of the matter is, and you know the answer. You know what it's going to take to change their minds. And I think it's because the national media can use that to exploit the passion of the Ohio State fans. That can still inflame them if you point to the losing streak in the game.
Thing. It just pisses me off because then I start to defend Ohio State, and I shouldn't have to defend them in this instance. But
that's the only thing that's left, and they're going to cling on to that. The story, Jake Trotter wrote a really good story about how Ryan Day and Nina Day and the family like processed the loss and moved on for the playoff. But like, it's still framed around like the week of the Texas game. It comes out. And look, I know how it works. All eyeballs are on it. You save your best stories for this week and people are going to read it. I'm not faulting them for doing that. Not faulting Jake Trotter for writing it. There's a lot of good insight in it. I have high marks for it. It's a good story. But it is still couched around what happened at the end of November. So there is only one way to end that. And it's not going to happen on Saturday. If I think Ohio State's going to win on Saturday, it's not going to change Paul Feinbaum.
In case he's listening, let's call him Fall Feinbaum.
Excuse me.
Google alerts for Fall Feinbaum.
Yeah,
off the charts.
See, you really got me too worked on this. I can't even speak.
It
won't change that opinion because they're going to talk. Even if they beat them, that's the point, Burn. They're going to talk about it through November.
It's partly that story from ESPN, and again, it was not like an inherently negative story, but it's just the way things are framed. There's a way to tell that story about what happened last year and say, and this is how he came out of it, and this is why Ohio State is should be grateful that this is the head coach of their football program. Instead, it's I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, look,
we got a lot of talk about football in the next 48 hours.
It will help. It will help if they win again on Saturday.
But, isn't that just a weird thing? Like, well, you just won the national championship.
I know.
But now we don't believe you're a good head coach unless you beat the next team you play that you just played 2 games ago. Unless you beat them this time, it didn't count. It's weird. It doesn't happen anywhere else.
Well, you and I have also talked at length on the beat and everywhere else over the last 7 years. All you have to do is put Ohio State in a headline, and everyone in the national media knows that. And so Fall Feinbaum is going to keep talking about Texas until Saturday. And even when, in my opinion, or if Ohio State wins, he's still going to write that one off and say there's going to be a rematch and Arch will be different down the road. Like, who knows what this game is actually going to look like? The great news is we are less than 48 hours away from kickoff on Saturday at noon in that building, beautiful building over to my right. I don't know.
It's still more. Less than 48 hours would be before 5 a.m. on Saturday.
Nobody's watching until afternoon, right?
As long as you're watching this video after noon on Thursday, then 100% it is less than 48 hours to noon on Saturday.
I exhausted all of my math skills trying to come up with a way to get to Three Things Thursday this week.
You did it, but that was bad. No, folks, Texas was unwilling to move the game to Sunday evening. However, 3 a.m. Friday night, they are ready to rock and roll, Hoochie Coo.
I'll kick it off right now. I wish there was another Thursday night game, but I'm glad Ohio State's not, because Wyoming and Akron is going to be in the full spotlight. So.
Sure, but there's Friday stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to do later on Thursday afternoon, just so you know, there's going to be a talking stuff.
Woo!
Okay, I've got Mick Walker from Letterman Row joining me to talk some recruiting stuff. Huge recruiting weekend, almost, from what I've heard, more than 100 recruits coming to town. It's the largest game that I can recall, more so than Notre Dame in 2022. Maybe go back to 2017 Michigan, when it was a recruiting star-studded list for the ages. I'm most curious, and this is something I'm going to try to find out before we go to air for Friday morning's Bold Predictions show. Who will be the biggest celebrity in the building on Saturday? Ooh. And I'm not allowing Peyton Manning or Eli Manning to be counted in this conversation.
Who are they?
Well, they're the people who taught Arch Manning how to play quarterback.
Oh.
And so how they played quarterback in the year 1999 is obviously very important to today.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out who the biggest celebrity is going to be. I'm always fascinated by who's going to be in the building. It's the week and a half before the NFL kicks off, so all the former Ohio State players will be here. And so that's always fun. We're going to do some live stuff from the Horseshoe at 8:45 on Friday.
That'll be on 10 TV, the morning news.
10 TV's morning news. We got a 2:30-ish Chalk Talk-ish.
There won't be any actual chalk.
Yeah, we're not.
It's a mailbag.
I'm not chalking nothing. We're going to be over at the Lane Varsity. The O on Lane,
yeah,
which is over there. This time
it's all over there.
Then it's game time.
Pretty much.
So
there'll be pregame keys on
enough
Saturday.
Talk. We're going to do the pregame keys.
Yeah.
On Saturday. One of the pregame keys, folks, is getting there early. So if you're coming to campus and you're getting into town on Friday, make sure you get to bed at a reasonable hour.
Or not, just stay up.
No, that's a bad idea. You need to have some juice on Saturday afternoon. You can't waste all your energy not going to bed on Friday night.
Okay, you might be right about that.
Okay.
But we are almost there, folks.
Yeah, that's going to be a good time.
Thanks for joining us on a Three Things Thursday on the Beat. Whether that was at 97.1 The Fan, 10 TV, or 10 TV Plus, or if you're just listening and not seeing this beautiful building behind us, the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, we appreciate any views or listens anywhere, and we are really excited to have a game in 2 days, which
slightly more than
48-ish hours, depending on when you're listening to us, and we thank you for doing that. He's Birm. I'm Austin. This has been The Beat on the Austin Birm Show. We'll talk to you later.